what I was showing him was this picture here of these statues that were found over in Egypt, Upper Egypt, of black men that were placed there or carved out of solid granite thousands of years ago. And if you notice, he didn't ever turn it toward the camera. He kept it down. Well, I started to turn it toward the camera, but I didn't. I was trying to be polite. And at that point. And but today in the Los Angeles Times on page 2, they have this same picture. You look in today's Los Angeles Sunday Times, and they have a story on page 2 about this temple over in Africa. They call it Egypt, but Egypt is in Africa. And the value of which is so tremendous, it points out how the United Nations is trying to float a loan of around $30 million to save this temple from being covered by the waters that will be brought up by this Aswan Dam that they're trying to build over there. And this thing is so shrewdly done that the average Negro will look at it and read it, and because it says Egypt, he never identifies it with him or him with it. It shows you how shrewd the white man is. But when all you have to do is look at the features of the thing, and you can see, brother, they got all the features that the white man says Negroes have. But because it is associated or connected with something of such value, archaeological and historic, anthropological value, the white man tries to steal it for himself and says, no, these are white people, these aren't black people. And look at this for yourself. Look closely at it, and then, and if you notice, you'll also read in there where the United States is on record as being against putting out the money necessary to save this archaeological wonder. They're against it. And it tells you in the paper that they're against it. They want to let it go on and go beneath the waves. There was a time when America would be for preserving something like that. Because in those days, the black man was so dead mentally, he could look right at it and wouldn't know he was looking at himself. He looked right at it and wouldn't know he was looking at himself. And today, when we see a black man, we know that's a black man. Whether they call him an Egyptian, a Re-Egyptian, or an Ab-Egyptian. Don't care what they call him. All you got, if he look like you, he's the same thing as you. And this man that they have here, brothers and sisters, it has nothing but the features of a pure black man. Also, they tell me that there's an exhibition going on in Los Angeles right now somewhere about King Tut. Where is that? Some kind of museum. Where is it? Exposition. Where is it? Oh, Exposition Park. I saw King Tut's mummy tomb when I was in Egypt. And I don't know if they have the same one here, but if you go and see it, you'll find out that this King Tut, whose mummy or sarcophagus, whatever they call it, they have, is as black as this board. And the white man knows this. Every picture that they have of King Tut, he's not brown. No, he is black, brother, just like this. And the black people who lived in that day had mastered science to such extent, had mastered chemistry to such extent that they could create colors that the dye hasn't faded to this day. Now, you know this. The white man got to paint his house every year. You got to paint yours, inside and out. And you haven't got a piece of cloth at home that won't fade if you put it in the sun. But yet these black people back there could make dye that has retained the color, same grade quality, right down to the day from 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. They were master chemists. And this tomb, and I guess this mummy, is gold encrusted. They had so much gold back then. In fact, those were the people who discovered gold. They knew what gold was. White man didn't know what gold was. And they encrusted their mummies with gold and beautiful colors and just laid them there. And finally, when the white man discovered them, he was shook up and wondered, how could these people back so long ago, supposed to be dumb, know so much about so much, know so much about so many things that he doesn't know about today.
That's a little taste of Malcolm in the 60s, mind you. So Malcolm knew that the Egyptians were black. Now, you might as well talk about the Ten Commandments and the pyramids being built by bricks. There are no bricks in the pyramids. They're all limestone.
Yes.
Quarried at Now, how were the pyramids built? Now, we go back to last week's show, and the Orion star system, and the pyramids set up, and the aliens coming from Sirius. So the Dogons say, the Dogons preach this religion, not any white man. Not these anthropologists. They weren't preaching this. We see Dr. Jeffries, yourself, Brother Kaba, don't believe that the Dogons were visited by aliens. All right? So I'm standing here just openly trying to show the brothers what I've found in my research and what I've always believed, that we were citizens of the universe. That's where we get our spiritual energy. This is our destiny. That's why we're not as animalistic as the caveman. We don't know that animals, and we're living in a society today beyond our consciousness. We all know this is not our nature. We as a nature, through 500 years of slavery, come back and still smile and tap dance.
That's right.
Towards ignorance. Ignorance. And look at Donald Trump. And here's a classic example of white supremacy. Now we can show the world how stupid it is. How do you feel that you're superior to somebody else when you're really the one on the back end? So we're here, I've always said we're here to teach the planet to be human. This is because we know that we that survive all this garbage in, garbage out, but we survive it and thrive. And we're all elders. We all made it to 70. You make it to 70s, your 70s, being black, you've seen some stuff. Amen. So here I have bring my 70s crowd today. 75 and over. Hey.
That's true.
All right?
That's
and
true.
of course, Clemson Brown, my man, we've been hanging out and doing stuff for 20 years now, right? And Clemson bought one of his hobbies. No,
Yeah,
he knew the Egyptians were black, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I do these now. This is as I want to kind of piggyback on Malcolm and him talking about the sculptures and the people of Egypt who were us, and while it is critical that we at this time know who we are,
Amen.
it is critical. And so the art that I've been doing, I'm an artist, among other things,
Right.
but is to take the motif of the pharaonic images and put faces of brothers that you see every day into them, so that
But we just saw it on the real thing.
absolutely, so that your children, your visitors, your neighbors who come to your house, they see themselves imprinted on the pyramids. This one was done as a gift to Professor Oebo, Gabriel Oebo,
okay.
who formulated the equation for the unified field theory.
Okay.
That is one of the great things about talking about the greatness and the genius of African people. And you were talking about being visited by, you call them aliens, but
Our ancestors.
our ancestors, I'll call them that. The universe has billions and billions and billions of galaxies. There are billions of planets. So with all that space that you can't even fathom or imagine, yes, there could be, there may be, there probably is other beings such as ourselves, of some nature out there. And one of the things that Professor Oebo has done in his work is to give us a framework by which we can better understand the universe. And looking at his model, you see that the Africans understood the universe thousands of years ago. what Professor Oibo said, and I was fortunate to travel with him throughout Egypt for his peer review.
You might show the book.
Where they had scientists coming from all over the world to challenge him. And they did. We did 18 lectures. We traveled throughout Nigeria, all of their university systems. And when the dust settled, the only person standing, left standing, was Professor Oibo. But we as a people have not really embraced this brother and his work. But in his work is the key to really the salvation of the planet, of humanity as we know it, because he gives us the mathematics for creating enough energy from a glass of water to run New York City for weeks.
Wait, let's slow down there. Now, you just said that this man that's proven Einstein's theory of relativity has a system where you can produce energy with water?
No, what Professor Oibo did was to go far beyond what Einstein did.
You're talking about Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was working on the equation for the unified field theory, and so was most mathematicians and who are trying to understand how the universe functions, the principles of the universe, and etc. Professor Oibo, and this is one of his works, highlights of the grand unified theorem. What he did was to complete the work of Albert Einstein and go beyond what any mind has done that we know of on the planet this far. He gives us the mathematics for for understanding how to get enough energy from a glass of water, which is, hydrogen, to run the universe, to run New York City for weeks. What I was trying to talk about
is that the reason why he's not recognized, because he has something to contribute to society that doesn't cost anything?
No, he's not recognized because he's African, because he's black. That's why. And another reason he's not recognized is because African people have not gotten behind him and
because they don't believe him either.
Protected him. Well, I find in my travels with him, and I've traveled, a lot with him, is that we are easily
bamboozled.
Bamboozled. That's a good word for it. We're easily bamboozled. At first, everybody was really, fascinated by him and was getting behind him. But you had a brother, what's his name, out of Boston, who did a piece on the internet. He is the, I think he's the chairman of the Black Scientists and Mathematicians, who did a piece on Oibo saying that he was a fraud and he hadn't done what he said he'd done, and just a whole lot of negative stuff. And he froze people. They didn't. They said, well, this is another brother who has a PhD in math, and he says that Professor Oibo has not, that he's lying, that he hasn't done these great things, even though the University of Göttingen, which is the home of Carl Friedrich Gauss, Germany, and they chose the work of Professor Oibo to celebrate Carl Friedrich Gauss. Now they, talking about the University of Göttingen, they ain't gonna make no mistakes like that. They're not gonna take the works of this black man and make it number one in their celebration of what they consider the greatest mathematics, black, white, or anybody, that's European.
They didn't care what color you were.
They are not. They would not make that kind of mistake.
Okay.
But they took his work to celebrate their greatest mathematician. So black folk got very, they didn't know what to do. So what I was trying to get, because I went everywhere, is for us to do the same thing they did in Nigeria. Bring all the black mathematicians, have peer review here. If you have any doubt, then let's challenge Professor Igbo and see if he does the same thing here that he did in Nigeria. In Nigeria, after a month of challenging, all of Nigeria came together, the whole Senate came together and passed unanimously a bill to create the first International African Prize for Science, and made Professor Igbo its maiden recipient. And then they also got bought off. Millions of dollars were spent. See, if you recognize Professor Igbo as the black man who has given us the equation for the unified field theory, you turn the world upside down. You have to remove Albert Einstein from the top and every other European, and you have to put the face of a black man up there, because he's the man who has done the job, who has done the work. But what I was trying to say is what he did was to prove the African cosmology of how the world, how the universe, the principles of the universe, and how the universe functions. He said that
can we go to grade school and just start, explain, Einstein's theory of relativity and how Igbo's grand unified theorem differs, or how it proves, or what is the theory of relativity? What is Einstein's theory?
Einstein's theory is a subset of the work of Professor Igbo. Professor Igbo's work includes every
what is Einstein's theory?
Einstein's theory is theory of relativity.
Okay.
And what Professor Igbo did was to show that Einstein was correct. But he went further, much further. I should have brought some of those papers.
Explain Einstein's theory. Leroy, Brother Leroy?
I'm not.
You ready for that?
That's not what comes to mind, Brother Clemson, is first of all, the impact on Dr. Igbo of the so-called rejection by the guy in Boston, and also the pullback of his own people in Nigeria. That's number two. The effect from here, and the effect from his people in Nigeria, and then a strategy of getting mathematicians, black or white, to test his theory. And even if you don't get a room full of individuals, what about some top, you start with that one first, top black mathematicians? Start here in New York, Sam Anderson. He's out in Brooklyn, he's recognized, but he's not necessarily the scientist of scientists, but he is someone who is in our realm, to deal with this. Because this area, we are, for the average person, a consumer. I'm a consumer. It needs, the Albert Einstein theory of relativity needs fleshing out for us. We just hear it and we keep on going, because we know the atomic bomb supposedly came from that and all that.
Right.
But as the average person doesn't know and understand that. So what's the impact on Dr. Igbo of the rejection from folks here and from Nigeria, and what about the strategy of at least getting groups, 2, 3 individuals, top mathematicians here?
Okay, Leroy. First of all, let me say that Sam Anderson, we go back maybe 15 years, somewhere near that. And Sam was one of the brothers who actually had Professor Igbo to come. Professor Ebo was going everywhere.
Right here in New York.
Right here in New York, all around. He was teaching in people's homes and churches. Because I would set it up for him. Anybody who wanted him to come, the brother would come. He didn't charge you anything. He did classes. He did classes in my home. Everywhere.
Well, he's been here. He's been here.
He's been here. So what I'm saying is that what you're saying is what needs to happen. Professor does not go around the way he used to. It's a matter of life and death. His home has been firebombed.
Why?
His life. It's a matter of life and death.
Why? Why is he threatened? Because of what he knows?
What he knows and who he is.
And the threat is what?
So he doesn't, the threat
He's
is...
a threat to what? The establishment?
To well, let's say the establishment.
Let me take a guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. This is only a guess.
Well-
Albert Einstein is a pillar of, quote, white supremacy in the math science area,
German.
as was Columbus in discovering stuff,
Okay.
and so forth and so forth and so on.
Right.
So when you have someone who comes on the scene and says they have proceeded further than an Einstein or further than a Henry Ford in creating a new type of car and that sort of thing.
Or the
These-
Egyptians were black.
Or the Egyptians were black, and we didn't shoot off all their noses as we
That's
should have
right.
done. Then you have a friction, and you don't even have to have an establishment. You can have individuals who just take it upon themselves to keep Negroes in their place.
Right.
That's
Thank you.
White supremacy.
Because I didn't want to spend all the time talking about that area.
Yeah.
What I was trying to point out is that what he proved mathematically was what the Egyptians had said historically about the universe and the principles of the universe and how all these gods that we were looking at, how they came into being. And I was going to connect that with what you were saying in terms of aliens and, coming
ancestors.
down.
Our ancestors.
Our ancestors, right. Now, what Professor Ebo, in his explanation, the way I understand it, and I'm not a mathematician, I'm an artist, but I can understand what he was saying spiritually. He said that the universe is a large space, from infinity to infinity.
Right.
A large space that is full of motion, and that, and the way he wanted to show it so you might could get an understanding of it is that if you took the sun, the sun is 92 million miles from the earth. It would take the light 8 minutes
Right.
from the sun to reach the earth, 92 million miles away. But he's saying, but the creator, this huge space from infinity to infinity is everywhere in these billions of universes at the same time, or in these billions of galaxies, everywhere at the same time, and that there is only one energy. You cannot create energy, and you cannot destroy energy. So that we perceive this energy in terms of waves. There is light waves, there's sound waves, there's X-rays, there's waves, but that is thought waves, that is the movement.
Vibrations.
And all things are generated
Or vibrate.
out of this universe from infinity to infinity through these waves. Say, for example, and I may not be exactly right in the way that I'm explaining it the way I understood it by watching him do this. So that these waves condense or slow down. And when they condense or slow down, they form matter. Anything that takes up space is matter. And the matter, the stabilization of that matter is the atom, the hydrogen atom. And in our ancient Egyptian what the way that they projected this, the way they taught this, was that the universe was spirit,
Right.
which is the same thing Professor Ebo is saying, that the
Well, the
universe
Kabbalion says the world, the universe is mental.
is mental, is spirit. And it is movement, and the movement is wave. So that the ancient Egyptians said that this universe was like, this whole universe is spirit. But
Right.
in the midst of the spirit came a tomb, Ptah, a mound that rose up out of the spirit, out of this spirit of this, universe that conceived itself. The mound rose, Ptah, and out of Ptah came a tomb, the atom.
Okay.
And Professor Ebo was explaining the atom in terms of nothing having changed. Yes, they said they split the atom, and they have quarks and leptons, but he's talking about the stability of the atom, and that the hydrogen is the building block of all of matter. And when the Africans said that a tomb arose out of the waters of none, out of this spiritual, being that's everywhere in the universe at the same time, and out of that came the sun, which is where we get our life from. But the sun is hydrogen. The sun is a hydrogen, a blob of hydrogen that's burning, for hundreds and hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of years. And that's where we get our life from.
Okay.
So that the Egyptians put all of this within their cosmology and their story, so that they have a tomb, they have Ptah, they have a tomb, and all of the deities, because their deities were the earth, was air, was the sun, and how all of these deities coming together created man.
Okay.
And when you take a deep breath, you're breathing the same air that everybody breathes. We're breathing it together. The trees is breathing. All living is breathing this air. This air is going between all of us. You're breathing it, you breathe it out, the trees breathe it in. So there is a...
The trees are giving off oxygen.
Yes, and we're breathing the oxygen and
we're giving them carbon dioxide. CO2.
Yes, so that there is a symbiotic relationship to all living. And so the Africans said that everything is everything. And so they weren't worshiping rocks, as people want to say. They had all these gods and they worship rocks and they worship. No, they understood that that was life and they were part of it, and everything is everything, and there's an ecological balance to the earth. And so they respected the earth. They respected everything because everything was a part of it. So their cosmology brought in an understanding that we have to protect the earth.
Right.
We are one with it. So we run around creating nuclear bombs to blow up the earth. We're just killing life. We're just killing ourselves. We're just killing everything. We are all one people.
One
We're
race,
all-
the human race.
The human race is all African. I mean,
Well, the first human was come from Africa.
right. And so that's why I said world history is an African story.
Yeah.
It is the story of the Creator bringing forth the African man and woman whose children spread all over the planet. And that is the same thing within the African cosmology.
Okay.
And so you have Osiris you have Horus, you have the story of the Trinity, you have all of these stories coming directly out of the African cosmology, which is what Professor Oibo, in his mathematical understanding of the principles how the universe works, showed us all of this mathematically. So when I say, well, I'm not going to get into the Jesus thing and the Christian thing, into the religious thing.
Well, let's take a short break. I just want to show Oyibo talking about elders.
Please.
Which is quite interesting. It's an African religion, African tradition. It's talking about the elders. The Roland is labeled elders. If you can find that. Excellent show, John.
Thank you.
Dr.
That has to
Oyibo.
be, yeah,
You
deal with that. You deal with it the way your ancestors dealt with it. See, the whole, I don't have a lot of time, but there's so much dimensions of this thing here. Listen, what he just told you makes a whole lot of sense in the sense that the African philosophy,
Come on.
it's such that you are supposed to respect the elder. Why do you respect the elder? Because, it's a bigger guy? No, not necessarily. It's more than that. You respect the elder because your wisdom is experience. Especially as a black, as a melanin person, you're already blessed with a high cranial capacity. That's already given. That's already a given blessing you come into this world with. But the cranial capacity by itself does not do it, does not turn into automatic wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience. Experience. And so the one that came into the world 1 second, that's all it takes, 1 second before you, had a snapshot of the world called experience before you. You will never, ever get that experience except through the eyes of that elder. So if you go kicking the elder, shut them down, and disrespect them because Master asked you to do so, Master takes respect out of the black elder because he doesn't have money to buy you.
That's right.
So therefore disrespect him or her. Right?
That's right.
You're dead wrong. That's what the stuff you're buying, you don't need most of it in the first place. You don't need the Nike shoes. So you don't go disrespecting your elder for that. Because the wisdom is far superior to the Nike shoes. And even when the elder is such at a disadvantage, he's still the elder, she's still the elder. Without higher thought, man, most of us won't be doing much. That's an elder. That's an elder wisdom. They're my basic, that tanga. Maurice Bishop. Maurice Bishop reminds me of my father.
So,
One thing we see from that is his confidence.
yay.
And
Like Einstein, huh?
that is
Or Dr. Yibo, his own
Dr.
self.
Yibo, his confidence. That's something that's not always welcome, even among our people.
That's right.
What came to
Such a
mind,
brilliant mind.
and you should be
He went
confident
somewhere.
behind that.
Yeah, I would think.
But some of us aren't, because we aren't validated within the system, and we're made to second guess ourselves. You see, they don't make us,
It's
but we
Leroy's
second
mic, I
guess
think.
ourselves.
Don't we
What's it,
challenge
this
each
way?
other most
This
of
way?
all?
Well, that's another piece,
Okay.
because we're operating out of a mind that is made in America. The Negro mind is made in America. But what comes to mind as Dr. Clemson was speaking on, Dr. Yibo, is this whole idea of blacks in science. When we get an understanding and that's the title of the book by Ivan Van Sertima. When we get a true understanding, then we understand that we are the sources of science.
Absolutely.
That the
Yeah,
Europeans
absolutely.
vibe off of us.
That's it.
And the proof of it is Alexander the Great. What books he couldn't take, he burned.
Right.
And another little anecdote is just came out in recent years is that in Timbuktu, the people buried the books under the homes. And it just came out that the books were buried under the homes. The not just a library, but we're talking about science. Because the European has been here for a set period of time to rule. And if they had access to more information, they'd be here a little bit longer. But they were given, according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they were given 33 degrees to rule for the last 6,000 years, and their time is up. But the point is that we should not look, our young people who are seeing this program and our elders who are seeing the program, grandparents and parents who are seeing the program, science, math, and all aspects of science should not be foreign to us. Oh,
That's
well,
it.
I didn't
That's
do well
it.
in school, and Jimmy, you know, you don't have to worry about that. Just
Yeah.
do literature. We should not be think of ourselves as interlopers, as uninvited guests in the science. This is part of our DNA.
Absolutely.
And we have to
Okay.
encourage this in our youngsters, especially as going back to your first statement. It's imperative that black people know, you know, what you showed in the beginning with Malcolm and the understanding of who we are, that it's imperative that we know this and that we teach this today to our youngsters and take them to the museum of the one on Fifth Avenue, the Metropolitan Museum of
Oh,
Art,
that's a great place.
because they have us in that intersection. In the Brooklyn Museum, they have us in a section. These very same statues and whatnot. So we're not foreign to science. And Dr. Yibo, he's on time in terms of going after this and establishing the area of discovery that he has been so blessed to do. And it's important for us to rally around him from the standpoint of, all right, let's have our mathematicians examine what you have put. And then because what he's done is a demonstration of what black people can do, not what Dr. Yibo can do. It's in our DNA.
Right, right.
And why did we not know about Hidden Figures before last year? How come we didn't know that? And they were so central, these black women were so central to the space program. Why didn't we know?
We've always been in the dark about that. You know, I remember coming up as a kid. All the movies we saw, there was nobody in the movies that we could identify with.
Star
I mean,
Wars,
especially in
we
the
weren't even the
50s.
future.
I said, what is this? I mean, where are all these black, and nobody in there I know. Step and fetch, everybody's a clown, you know. Guess who's coming to dinner? I mean, how many black men we knew back in the 50s that were just as sharp? I mean, Wayne Rice, the first black man on TV.
Wayne Rice.
Out of our crew. Yeah,
That's
we
right.
hung out together
Brother
when we were
Wayne.
kids, you know. And the same high school, George Washington High School, man. And Wayne was, I mean, and he was a black man. I mean, he was dark.
Conscious
He
to-
was dark. You couldn't limit him to nothing. You couldn't tell him what he couldn't do. Talking about Sambo, he'd knock you out and then come out with something articulate. I mean, he was a genius. I mean, and he just blew all the characteristics of what Dosh can be or Sambo is
That's
supposed to
right.
be about. And he was the first black man on television, man.
He
Wayne
was the
was
first
a trip.
in the what they had, Robert Culp and Cosby. They were teamed up, but he was teamed up with this other guy before that.
Oh, what's his
and,
name? Come on. Oh, man.
But anyway,
Oh, wow. We're both getting old on that
well,
one.
I mean, we processed a lot of information, so it's not that
no,
these
we
things are
should-
top of mind.
I mean, it's going back 60 years. But she should register. Oh, come on, what is his name?
It'll come up. People looking at this on TV and saying, "Hey, they're talking to the TV. It's going to come through. We're going to pick it up in a second." but Dr. Aibo, I'm not a mathematician in terms of training, but it's important that we began black women, black females, and young men begin to attack math as it relates to, I know I can understand this. If I dig deep enough in this, I know I can understand it. If I find the right teacher, I know I can understand this. That's how we have to approach science.
Okay.
Our youngsters have to, and then if they're not doing well in school, then I'm always saying it's the teacher. This is what Brother Leroy feels. Because if a true teacher is not going to let any of his students get away without an understanding,
right,
he and she are going to work to give them because that reflects on the teacher.
All right.
Teachers should produce great students.
You know, I want to play one other item here about the Dogons. The Dogon 3, if you can get that up before and let me know when you have it now, we'll start. But I just want to give a little input of what we've been doing the last 3 weeks, you know, showing the beginnings of creation, what mysteries are out there. You know, we start off the Kabbalion, the mind, the world is I mean, these theories I've been trashing around in my mind for 30 years, the 70s. I first came into the Sirius mystery. Now I come to find out that a lot of my brothers don't believe aliens exist. Graham is the most doubting Thomas of all.
I'm gonna give you a thought. These are black people in a think tank. Supposing the aliens are a part of us who went to that space and then came back on a visit.
I wouldn't doubt that.
All right. I can accept that.
I wouldn't doubt that. I said that these are our ancestors.
Yes.
All right, let's hear what the Dogons have to say. All right? Now, these people are in the middle of nowhere talking about dwarf stars.
Among the Dogon people, Dr. Guggenheim has gradually gained the confidence of the Dogon elders and acceptance into the inner circle of secret knowledge.
The Dogon belief the universe was born in a vast explosion, and as it opened up, everything that we know about and everything that the Dogon know about in the world came pouring out, and nothing was left except a shell. This empty shell became the star that they call the Pontolo, and that we call Sirius B.
In 1950, astronomers confirmed the existence of the Dogon star. At the United States Naval Observatory, Washington, D.C., Chief Astronomer Dr. Irving Lindenblad devoted years to the search for the dark star.
The Sirius system is a very interesting challenge observationally because it is very difficult to observe a star 10 seconds from such a bright object as Sirius A.
After the years of effort, Dr. Lindenblad finally succeeded in taking this photograph of Sirius B and its giant companion. The Dogon possess even more startling information about the star they hold sacred. They say that when it gave forth all its energy, it collapsed in upon itself, becoming incredibly dense and so heavy that all the earthly beings combined cannot lift it. The San Fernando Observatory, Sylmar, California. Dr. Gary Chapman is an astronomer specializing in the physical characteristics of stars. By splitting the light collected from a distant star into colored bands, its physical characteristics can be analyzed.
Sirius B is fairly normal in the surface layers, but we do rely on the calculations to tell us that the interior is essentially out of nuclear fuel. It's a dead star. We know from modern calculations that it has a very, very high density, has a density about 5 million times that of water, and if you were to be on the surface of Sirius B right now, you'd be crushed very, very flat, because the surface gravity is about 100 million times that of the Earth.
The symbol is explained. The knowledge preserved in rituals through the centuries has been confirmed. Beyond the Dogon knowledge of the dark star, the symbols reveal more information about the celestial universe. They correctly place the Earth and our solar system within the Milky Way, and state correctly that the massive cluster of stars is far more distant than the planets. The understanding of astronomical movements led the Dogon to investigate the human anatomy. They discovered the circulation of blood in the body long before it was discovered by the English physician William Harvey in the 17th century. These symbols and the knowledge they hold are the legacy of the mysterious Numos, the messengers from the dark star. Many cultures claim their knowledge was given them by godlike beings descended from the heavens. But the Dogons insist their gods descended from one star in particular, which they're able to identify and describe in detail. Does other evidence exist of this encounter between gods and men? In 1937, French anthropologist...
I mean, that's proof right there. Leonard Nimoy said so. I mean, right?
Well,
Star Trek.
if I may, that was one of the subjects that came up when we were doing our peer review in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Indian professors, mathematician, PhD, real respected brother, challenged Professor Igbo, because Professor Igbo said that there was, how did he put it, that he challenged the concept of the universe beginning with the Big Bang theory.
Okay.
He challenged that.
The Indian.
No, Professor Igbo challenged the Indian with that concept of the Big Bang theory.
Well, this is the big wave theory.
Well, it's more than the big wave theory. It is that the universe is from infinity to infinity, has no beginning, has no ending, and has no beginning and no ending. And that it has always been here. But see, if there's a Big Bang, then the universe is expanding. And what Professor Igbo asked the Indian mathematician was, where is the universe expanding to? And then they got in a big thing back and forth and back and forth. And, you know, in terms of space, you can go into space. As space is infinite, space is infinite. So, you know, you can go into it a million ways. Every dot, is infinite in space. So finally, in trying to get to the answer, he asked the Indian professor again, where is the universe expanding to if it is not expanding in space? Mm-hmm. It's all about space. The universe is space. So if the universe is expanding, where is it expanding to? And one of the mathematicians way in the back said, Professor, I got it. That space is all space, so the universe can't be expanding because the universe is space. Mm-hmm. Mm. It is space from infinite, it's space. It's all space. No beginning, no end. Infinite space So where is it expanding to if it is not space? So it can expand. And so finally, they all stood, and that was one of the very high points of that, because when he took the Indian professor out, who was supposed to be, you know, the cream of the soup, the rest of them just collapsed, because when that argument ended, nobody had challenged that until Professor came along and just blew them away. And they said this man was robbed of the Nobel Prize. You know, we had days of this back and forth in these arguments, but that was a very important. So the expanding universe. Now, let me get back to the Dogon. Everything the Dogon said could be true from their perspective. And
they're
not
explaining
only
something that exists.
yes.
How did they get this information?
Well, you know, when you close your eyes.
You don't believe what they're telling us?
Look, when I close my eyes, I go somewhere, and I come back.
No, but we're talking about the
sleep.
Dogon.
No, we're talking too. But we're talking about space. Within space,
right, no,
when
we're
you
talking
die,
about
where do you go?
What the Dogons explain where they got the information about a dwarf star, which cannot be seen by the naked eye, and describe what the dwarf star is. Collapse energy.
I understand what you're saying.
Well,
and the Egyptians had
every star collapses into itself where there's no nuclear energy, and then it's reborn. It recreates itself. It expands again.
And I'm not saying that does not happen.
That's scientific.
I'm not saying that didn't happen.
Isn't that what happens to dwarf stars?
You're correct on that.
Okay.
But that does not mean that expanding universe concept. They said that the universe started with this vein and emptied out and into a shell. What Professor was doing was challenging that particular concept of an expanding universe and the Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
And he was correct on that. Now, the knowledge that the Dogon had, I'm not challenging it.
Okay.
In fact, I've been with Charles Finch when he has went through that and laid that out.
Okay.
And it's a phenomenon. But that is also ancient Egyptian knowledge.
Of course it is. Well, I further go, that's where I played a piece last week where you saw the beginning, where we saw the gods of Orion. The pyramids are built according to the system, the Sirius mystery system. That's not a coincidence. And the pyramids of Cheops are built in the center of the landmass of the planet.
Yes.
Now, this has to be done from above. So no doubt that something exists in the
everywhere.
stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We are the universe, and this is very key This is very key for our survival. To realize when you say the God in me salutes the God in you.
Amen.
There is but one energy. We are all from that one energy. That energy that we call the divine, or some people call God. I mean, that energy is in everything and in everybody. And the Africans, they, in their balance and understanding of how you become one with that energy so that it is not you who speak, but that energy speaking through you, they said you have to live ma'at. The more of a lifestyle of ma'at you live, which is truth, harmony, justice, peace, balance, then the more you remove your ego, and the more you become one with the Creator.
Amen.
So it is not you who speak. So we could call into being, another whatever we choose to call into being.
That's right.
And it must come, because it is not us who is calling it, or it's not I, but it is the
Collective
universe
energy.
through me, bringing it into being and calling it. Because I have lived, as the Egyptians say, a Ma'atian life. So I have lived so that the universe will speak through me and bring into being that which we have willed together to bring into being. So I don't have to worry about the European exterminating us because we are the creation. You can't exterminate creation. You don't have anything. You can't stop the sun from moving around in its orbit. You can't stop the earth from, well, you can try to blow it up, but I mean, these things are beyond any control of humanity. So we need to get back into who we were, because we, the Creator, in our understanding of the wisdom that the Creator blessed us with,
Amen.
and us living that way, brought all of these things into being, civilization and all that. So when we get back into ourselves, we will be able to do that again.
Amen.
So I'm with the Dogon.
Hey, they got the word.
That piece, you cut it off, but they asked one of the scientists, how did the Dogon get this knowledge?
Well, he tells his own story.
Well, there was three options.
He doesn't believe it either.
Well, the point is, the three options, the third one, he says coincidence.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I related to how many black youth going to school have come up with great papers, whether it's in high school, college, or in postgraduate work. They've come up with great papers and have been marked below the true mark that they should have gotten. And when they challenged the professor, I can't prove it, but I think you cheated.
Yeah,
and that's happened to
brilliant.
so many families. So it's a point, when I saw that, I said, hey, that's it again. The same thing with Oyibo is, hey, you can't possibly have come up with this.
We knew back in the day that, because we had the spirit, we had the soul, I'm talking about the 50s again, that people were jealous. I mean, my sister told me just recently that people were jealous of me because I was too happy.
You said, wait,
you black, you ain't supposed to be that happy. But I never cared about anything. I said, now I'm going to have a good time. My wife knows it. She knew me as a kid, man. I was a happy-go-lucky.
Can I say
but I had it on. But we got to go.
Minister Farrakhan has a press conference Thursday morning, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and folks can plug into it on noi.org. 10 a.m. Thursday morning, noi.org.
And with that, the God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned. Now, yeah, we got to go. See, you got to come more often, brother. Power to
I want people to know where to get this.
All right. So we'll have Clemson back. God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned. Power to the people. God bless.